Hi, welcome to week 3 of our nutrition class. Tonight we're going to be talking about carbohydrates and fats. Carbohydrates are made up of sugars, fibers, and starches. And there are 2 forms of carbohydrates, simple and complex. The primary function of a carbohydrate is to provide energy for the body, especially the brain and the nervous system. And if any of you have been around me when I'm getting ready for my bodybuilding shows, that 3 days before, and I go through that whole carb depleting and what I call stuck on stupid, boy, I'll tell you, it's really hard to think without carbohydrates. And you hear about all these fad diets and, ooh, don't eat carbs, don't eat carbs, don't eat carbs. You have to have carbs to function, okay? We're going to know the difference, or learn the difference tonight, between simple and complex. What are better carbs and what are not so good carbs, okay? So that you can be consuming the right kind of carb. Now, as I said, they're classified as simple or complex, and the classification depends on how quickly the sugar is digested and absorbed. A simple carbohydrate has 1 or 2 sugars, whereas a complex carbohydrate has 3 or more. Complex carbohydrate naturally provide vitamins, minerals, and fiber. And we find these complex carbohydrates in whole grains, your beans and your starchy vegetables, sweet potatoes. So you have good, simple carbohydrates. They naturally contain vitamins, minerals, and fiber. You'll find good simple carbohydrates in your fruit, your milk, and in some vegetables. The vegetables that we use for flavor, like our onions and our cucumbers, iceberg lettuce, not a lot of nutrition value there, right? Peppers. Our bad simple carbohydrates have very little or no nutritional value, and those are our candy and our soda. Candy and soda. And table sugars and syrups, but it doesn't include our natural syrups like maple syrup.
So those are okay?
What's that?
Maple syrup?
Maple syrup, yes, in moderation.
Honey?
In moderation, absolutely. There's good value. And speaking of honey, if any of you have allergies, if you consume local honey, it helps you to build an immune system towards the pollen and things like that. So it can be actually very beneficial. So how do you recognize a bad carbohydrate? It's white. If it's white, you don't need it. Whether it's potato or bread or rice or pasta or bagels, boxed cereals, waffles, pancakes, donuts, juices, any naturally sweetened drink, or alcohol. All sugar. Right, Rachel? So some notes on carbohydrates. If you lower your bad carbohydrates, you will lower your cholesterol and your triglycerides, your blood pressure, and improve your circulation. Now, most carbs consumed should be complex, and you want to eat them early in the day because they provide energy, and we want to increase our metabolism. So you should consume your carbohydrates before 3 o'clock with the exception of vegetables. Vegetables you can eat 24/7. You got this information from actually Harvard, and there are 2 master hormones that control blood sugar and fat storage, your insulin and glucagon. Now, insulin and glucagon are both always present. It's totally a matter of what you put into your mouth as to what your pancreas is going to secrete. Insulin shifts the metabolism into storage mode. It stores fat, and it is a result of consuming simple carbohydrates. Whereas glucagon shifts the metabolism into burning mode, and it burns fat, and it is a result of consuming protein. Now, everybody's heard of diabetes. 2 types, type 1, type 2. Type 1 diabetes, these folks, their pancreas is broken. It doesn't work. We all need some sort of insulin, a little bit, every time we eat to digest our food. And with type 1 diabetes, you're typically born with it. Sometimes it does show up as you get a little older. but your pancreas doesn't work any longer. So with that, you will need injectable insulin. Type 2 diabetes, which used to be considered adult onset diabetes, and the reason I say used to be is because now, by the age of 10, in a regular daily doctor's checkup, they are going to check for high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and check your sugar levels. Unfortunately, there is a diabetic epidemic in the United States. And, you know, the first thing we think of is candy or sugar or... Let's also think about our processed foods. What are our schools feeding our children? Busy parents. What are you going to do? It's easier to grab a box or grab a can than it is to cook from scratch. And when my daughter was in middle school, there were 5 children who had type 2 diabetes in her middle school. That's just the ones that I were aware of. And those, if you think about it, it used to be considered adult onset because usually, you know, if you got type 2 diabetes, you were 50 or older. And does anybody know some of the things that can happen to you if you let your diabetes go, if you don't take care of it through nutrition and proper exercise? You can go blind.
Lose limbs.
Lose limbs because of poor circulation. Kidney failure.
Heart disease.
Heart disease. We have 2 type 1 diabetics right here. Who've taught me quite a bit.
We try.
You're good. So with the so you think within, like, at least by 20 years, even if you don't take care of yourself, you're 50, you're 70, you lose your eyesight, your poor circulation, you lose a limb. That's terrible at 70. Now, sorry to paint a gruesome picture, but let's talk about these 10-year-olds, okay? Now, 20 years later, they're 30. Does a 10-year-old shop for themselves? Does a 10-year-old cook for themselves?
No.
What's the easiest thing to do? Grab and go, vending machine, run into the store on the way home, drive through.
Like charged with like child abuse. No, that's
Type 2
awful.
diabetes is completely preventable and most of the time reversible through proper nutrition and adequate exercise. So you've got these 10-year-olds who don't know how to take care of themselves, don't know how to change their diet. Now they're 30. What does this world look like if there is an epidemic right now of diabetes? Now they're 30. This is our future. And this is what upsets me, and this is why I get all emotional about it, because now they're 30, and we look around us, and there's all these blind people, or people without limbs, or this or that. I mean, it's a pretty gruesome thought. So it's our job to show everybody the way. No more processed foods. No more, you know, living on sugar and soda and candy, and it's the processed food is really the biggest thing. And people say to me, well, I can't afford to eat healthy. That's baloney, because a bag of carrots is like $1.33, and the last time I went down the chip aisle, it was a few, you know, probably a year or 2 or 10 ago, I don't know. I'm lucky I don't shop, right? Like $3 or $4 for a bag of chips. Or cookies? What are cookies? So, we don't call it adult onset anymore. And, excuse me, type 2 diabetes, your pancreas works absolutely fine. It is totally a consequence of consuming far too many carbohydrates for far too long. Your cells actually become resistant to the amount of insulin that your pancreas secretes. So you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, okay. Of course, they're going to tell you you need to change your diet, and they're going to put you on medication. However, the medication controls the sugar levels, so I didn't have to change my diet because I just took this pill. Now, your pancreas works overtime to over-secrete insulin to make up for it. And then your doses go up, and then your pancreas works harder, and the doses go up, and and pretty soon, your pancreas will burn out. And you will be, you'll need to have injectable insulin at that point. So how do we stop this insanity? Cut your carbs. Remember that insulin produced is always a response to what we put into our mouths. Let's take a piece of chicken. Beautiful piece of chicken. It's lean, we bake it. Very little insulin is produced, just enough to digest that chicken. On the other hand, if we coat that chicken with flour, drop it in some oil till it's nice and crispy. We have to have our vegetables, so we'll grab our fries with that and a little ketchup and typically a Diet Coke, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And oftentimes that's a typical American meal. Sad but true. So your poor pancreas works overtime when this happens. And when this becomes part of your lifestyle, this whole grab and go, gotta go, there are better ways. Anybody help me figure out a better way to do it? Planning. Grab some carrots.
Planning, cook ahead.
Grill
Cook ahead.
Grill.
Right? Freeze your own meals that are already made. And next week when we talk about planning, we're going to get into a lot of that. You know, I have a crazy busy lifestyle. I do not eat processed foods.